about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary Dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville.
Futurama.
Good evening. You are listening to a Rattlegion Broadcasting premiere podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Rattlegion. Tonight, our favorite show is Aggretsuko, Season 3, brought to you by the good people at FanWorks and Netflix. Joining me tonight to talk about this is the one and only David Wright. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing all right, Mark. How about you?
Couldn't be better. I have no complaints, and if I had any complaints, no one would listen anyway. So, Season 3 debuted August 27th, 2020, and I'll tell you, this was my favorite season to date. What did you, before we break it down, what did you think of this season overall?
Overall, I thought it was good. I was a bit disappointed that it mostly took place outside of the office.
Really?
That's kind of really the only sort of major critique I could give it is it's a workplace comedy without the workplace.
I felt like between seasons 1 and 2, they had exhausted. I mean, going back and listening to our first podcast talking about seasons 1 and 2, and in hearing you talk about workplace culture in Japan, I don't know how much more could have been mined for drama and comedy. Maybe you have some insight into that, but I feel like they did a pretty good job of going, well, these are all the jokes and these are all the drama that we can make out of Japanese workplace life. We need to talk about something else now. That was where I landed with this. What do you think?
It's one way of going about it. I was sort of thinking we could get more of stuff like, for example, Anai, where Aggretsuko now has to train a new employee, and her struggles with learning how to do that. So there's still, like, season 1 was Aggretsuko learns to take her job more seriously and to try harder to get good at it. Just that sort of idea that there's no easy out in life. And then going from there, it could be more her now trying to accomplish that. It's kind of like, my issue with a lot of romance stories is sort of once the guy gets the girl to go on the date, or the girl gets the guy to go on the date, it's over. Like,
right.
Next, we get to see the wedding over the credits, where, as anyone who's actually, been in a long-term relationship with someone knows, is, dude, getting that first date is just the beginning. Even getting married is just the beginning.
Yep.
There's so much drama that you could mine from people who are already in a relationship. It's kind of a huge disservice that all like Hollywood or TV seems to care about is just getting to first base.
Yeah, I see your counterpoint. Let me ask you a different question. Now, you lived in Japan for some time, and then you came back to Canada.
Yeah.
How long were you in Japan at all when baby metal became a thing?
I think baby metal was close to when I left Japan. Like, I think I found out about it more after the fact. After I got back here, though I was there pretty much for the meteoric rise of AKB48, which is, if we're going to talk idol groups, that's sort of the patient zero.
Now, tell me about that band. Is it traditional idol pop music, or was it the combination metal pop music that baby metal is?
It's traditional pop. Like, I'm not much of an authority on AKB48. I listened to an episode of the Anime News Network podcast way back in the day where someone explained how it all works. So that's where most of my knowledge comes from. But it was impossible during the time I was there, and probably even a bit afterwards, to escape their presence, because they were just all over everything. It was a huge media empire at that time. And I'm not sure how it is now. They might still be up there.
You're familiar with baby metal. Do you listen to their music at all?
I can't say I've listened to any of it. Just it's never really popped up.
Okay. I don't know what kind of music you listen to. So I found baby metal just because they were somebody on the Metal Injection blog posted one of their videos, I became instantly infatuated with Baby Metal. I thought the combination of the sweet-sounding, would you call it K-pop or idol music? What is the appropriate term here?
I guess I would call it like idol music or pop music. Again, I haven't really listened to any of it, so I can't quite say this is a guess here. But K-pop is Korean by definition. So.
Sure. We'll go with idol music just to keep the conversation flowing. So the combination of idol music backed by modern heavy metal, I just thought was the greatest thing ever. And I became obsessed with Baby Metal. We've reviewed all their traditional albums, none of the live stuff or EPs or anything like that, but all of the full-length albums. I actually got myself, I think you've heard the story, I got myself in trouble with a bunch of YouTube people because these poor girls, they're singing with Judas Priest, and of course they're singing, they're doing English with a Japanese accent, and I thought it was adorable, but the way it came across when I remarked on it was that I was making fun of them, and the Baby Metal fans came out of the woodwork to call me a big giant racist.
Yeah, so just to be picky, I'd say it's more idol group music because the term idol can also apply to like an individual singer. Okay. So I know I'm being picky there, but
I bring it up because that's what the season largely revolves around.
Yeah, like I say, it's more of an idol group series than an office workplace comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as an idol series, it's good. Like I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's a very drastic departure from what the show has been up to this point.
So you're a little disappointed that they didn't stay in the office and they went into this sort of really unexpected path. It starts off with she's broken up with Tadano, and she's at home, and she's decided to fill to mend her broken heart and fill the void with an online virtual boyfriend.
Yeah, virtual boyfriend it would be called.
And I'm going to ask
which was great, by the way.
Yeah, I want to ask you some questions about that. So let me
sure.
Let me just catch people up on the plot here. So she's doing this virtual boyfriend thing through a video game console, and it's a
PlayStation 4.
And she buys the virtual boyfriend clothing, and she basically goes broke, spending all of her savings doing so, and that's what gets the plot in motion here. All right, talk to me about the virtual boyfriend thing.
I can't say I've used either virtual boyfriends or virtual girlfriends. I've heard a lot more has been said about virtual girlfriends than boyfriends, so I'm just gonna jump over into that.
Okay.
So it's just being able to have that sort of feeling in your life without having to deal with all the struggles and pitfalls of getting an actual girlfriend or boyfriend. Have you heard of dating sims before?
Dating sims?
They're kind of like these sort of text-based adventure games. I mean, with images.
Oh, I think I've seen like advertisements for this sort of thing on Facebook.
Yeah, it's like a visual novel would be the sort of bigger genre, and then you have the the dating sims where you're like a male character and there's numerous female characters usually, though I'm sure there's dating sims for all types and all preferences.
Did something happen in Japan where people just stopped deciding to date real life human beings? Like, I know sex robots are a thing. That I get. That I understand. That I sympathize with. But this other nonsense you're talking about, why? Why, Dave?
Well, I don't entirely get it myself. I would say some of it might just be, how busy things are with the workplace culture, the pressures of, life in that environment, and just sort of the culture of not being very direct and sort of being very sort of shy and downplaying oneself. Mm-hmm. I'm speaking in incredibly broad terms here.
Sure.
Just so I'm not trying to say, this is all Japan. No.
Why aren't you an expert in everything Japanese, Dave?
Yeah. But so it's we could even go even more down the rabbit hole and get into the hikikomori. I don't know if you've heard about them before.
I have no idea what that is.
So a hikikomori is basically someone who has shut themselves away from the world. They've sort of look at the pressures of going into the company life, the sort of salaryman existence, and say, nope, not for me. I'm just going to stay home, let my parents pay my bills and rent, and just, type online and just don't even go outside.
So Japanese incels.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. So when you saw this first episode and you saw her doing the virtual boyfriend thing, what was your first thought?
Well, I thought it was funny, just how cause she's had a couple of bad relationships now. I forget the guy's name from the first season who just was in the relationship just to be in a relationship because that's what he thought was expected of him.
Rezuzuke,
that was it. And then she had Tadano, who had feelings for her, but he is such an eccentric that he just would never settle to get married. Not that he didn't have feelings for Retsuko.
That's a tale as old as time. I love you too. Let's get married. Whoa, don't rush things.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was so much the fear of commitment. It was more just, it's an antiquated institution of society, and I'm too much of a free thinker to be, to deal with such a old way of doing things, yada yada yada, and again, I'm doing it too. Retsuko, in the end, realizing no, I cannot live that life, even though I like this guy and he's an escape from my desk job.
Yeah, and it was a very real thing that happens with a lot of people. I think I might have talked about this on the last podcast where, when my wife and I were dating, we had to have some serious conversations about marriage and children. She wanted to get married. I didn't necessarily want to get married again, but I did want a family, and so I was willing to be married in order to get to that next goal. And she actually hadn't thought about kids, and I was like, well, if they kind of come together. If you want to be married, we also need to have kids, and and we could have very well broken up. If we were both on totally different pages. As it turns out, we're not, and we're 10 years married with 2 kids. But that's where a lot of people land. They look at the institution of marriage as antiquated. They look at it, that like Tadano, they feel like they don't want to be tied down in that way. They're perfectly willing to commit to the person, but they don't want the structure. And that doesn't work for a lot of people. So one of the things about Aggretsuko that I really like, and that listening back to our previous podcast, is it really keys into how people work and sometimes don't work. I think it's a very real show for such a silly presentation. The Sanrio type of characters and everything. But if you just turned the picture off and listened to the characters talk, this could very well be a workplace drama that's realer than anything else I've seen on TV.
Oh yeah, if you got rid of the cute little animal characters and cast it with like real people, it would everyone would consider it to be like a serious workplace comedy.
So she's playing. She gets herself in trouble, and there's a couple of different things that happen. She starts scrimping and saving again. She's eating she's eating office cookies for lunch, or there's a couple of bits there where she doesn't bring a real lunch to work, and everyone's worried about her.
Yeah, to give you a bit more insight behind the office cookies things is like whenever someone from sort of the company or an organization or even kind of like a extracurricular group goes like on a vacation somewhere, it's considered polite to bring back a souvenir, which is usually like a cookie or something. Like most touristy places will have a selection of like snacks that you could buy, and you take that back to your work, and you have all these individually packaged cookies, biscuits, confections, whatever, and then it's you pass them out each to one person. Yeah, and I think it was Kabai who had them, I believe.
Yeah.
And she was like, one per person, and then Retsuko just grabs half of them and goes to the
I like Retsuko, but she sometimes is kind of a shitty person.
Yeah, it's because it's her perspective. You understand that this is an act of desperation. She's not doing it out of malice or selfishness. It's just I need food and I have no money.
Yeah. So I think she tries to ask Gory for a loan. That doesn't go very well. She ends up going away with her mom for a weekend, and at the end of it, her mom gives her extra money, and she's like, "Okay, I think I'm in the clear now." And at that very moment, she backs into a car.
Yeah, dope.
And this is where we meet. What the hell is his name?
Yeah, I don't think they even have to
Hyodo.
say his name, but it's Hyodo.
So this is where she meets Hyodo, and at first Hyodo's, and I want you to kind of speak to this for me. The way the cadence, the tempo, the way Hyodo spoke seemed really off-putting and weird to me, and overly dramatic, but in a perceived Japanese way. What did you get from the way Hyodo spoke?
Yeah, well, this is nice because I watched it with my wife as well, and she's basically saying like Yakuza, like his mannerisms were that of a Yakuza, which kind of explains more why Retsuko would be really freaked out. Like, oh man, this guy's serious business. Like, is he going to extort money from me, blackmail me, dump me in the river?
Okay, so that's done purposefully to put forth that image of, oh god, she hit a guy from the Yakuza.
Yeah, and I think it also plays into the joke that he slowly like reveals to her what he's doing, and he goes into the seedy club, bottom of the stairs, like, oh Jesus, it's going to be like a coke den or something, and oh no, it's an Idol concert.
Yeah, as it turns out, he's managing an idol band, and he initially uses Retsuko as kind of a gopher. She also, when he realizes she's an accountant, so the whole thing is she has to pay him back. She owes him money for the damage to the car. And,
I think it would be about $2,000-ish.
Yeah. So he was like, you work for me, you pay off your debt. So she not only does gophering for him and for the band, but she also does the books. And this is where the power dynamic starts to shift a little bit, because initially she's like basically a serf on this, not plantation. Serfs worked on, help me.
Oh, geez. Maybe farm.
Sure. What was the form of economic system with serfs and...
Oh, jeez, yeah. Yeah.
Damn it!
That's way too far of a change in gears for me right now.
Why aren't you an expert in antiquated economic systems, Dave? Anyway, moving on. So she's in the beginning, he has all the power, she has none. She's basically like afraid of this guy, and she's,
as is usual with Retsuko. She's not really that assertive outside of the karaoke booth.
But as she starts to get involved in the business, and she gets a closer look at the books, she starts taking a little bit more control over the operation.
Yeah,
basically
well, it's
telling
also Washimi. She ends up confessing to Washimi, and Washimi gives her a bit of a pep talk.
Yeah, Washimi says, put your big girl pants on, stop being such a wuss, is basically what Washimi says.
Pretty much.
And she tells Hyodo, like, hey, she starts changing the operation so that it's more cost effective. Like, there's a thing with buttons, which explain to me the buttons thing.
I don't really know like what the big deal is with buttons, but basically he's over ordering like all the merchandise for the band.
Right.
And so they're not generating enough money from the merchandise. Like he's terrible at managing the idol group, basically.
Right.
So Retsuko,
but he doesn't think so. His ego is such where he thinks he's just got this thing down.
Yeah.
Like, this is the way it has to be.
Yeah, he's one of those people where like he's got a dream and he's going for it. He's giving it his all, despite the lack of ability to actually realize that dream.
So Aggretsuko turns things around for the band as she, gets like their own button printer, and she basically makes changes so that they're actually generating an income in the back in the black again instead of perpetually being in the red. So she really proves her worth to Hyodo and to the whole operation. I'm going to stop there and talk about what is the guy that's into her's name?
Oh, geez, Haida.
Okay. So this subplot of season 3 actually drove me crazy because I I don't cheer for the guy that chases the girl that friend zones him. Especially when there's another girl who's as into him as whatever the the dog's name is.
Yeah, Inui. It's actually funny because there's actually a few puns in the names of the various characters. Like Inui, like Inu is the Japanese word for dog, so it's easy to actually remember her name. Like Kabe is hippo, so Kabai is the hippo character.
So throughout all of season 3, what's the guy's name again?
Haida.
Hyena. So Haida is still hot for Retsuko. You know, just loves her to pieces. You talked about he walked her home during the Christmas episode. Won't get off of it. And Retsuko will not give him the time of day. She is up her own ass. She's got a guy to pay off and a thing to happen and a what's-he do. And she don't truck with Haida no how.
Well, and it's not so much that she's actively shutting him down. It's more just
she's oblivious to his existence.
Yeah, she's oblivious, and I wouldn't say to his existence, but she's oblivious to his feelings. And in her defense, he's not really putting it out there.
Yeah, that's the other side of it. Is what drove me nuts about Haida is you want this girl, you want this girl, you want this girl. You have every opportunity to try and tell her that, and you keep shying away from it. Haida's a hard character to cheer for.
Yeah, again, in Japanese, it's often translated as you confess your love for the person. You finally have that awkward moment where you just stand your ground and you say, like, I like you. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of their moment to say, like, oh, I like you too, or sorry, no, it's not mutual. And yeah, he hasn't done that yet. He's just been a really good friend up to this point.
But, like, okay, so the other side of this, though, is that there's a girl in the office who he ends up catching the attention of, and she likes him, and she cooks for him. Did you ever see Clerks?
Yes, I have seen Clerks.
Remember that line at the end where Silent Bob finally speaks up, and she's like, there's a lot of bitches in this world. Most of them will cheat on you, but not all of them will bring you lasagna. She brought him curry! God damn it.
I have such conflicted about Inui, because she is
conflicted. Conflicted.
Well, in that, she is like a really good catch. Like, she is so mature, so patient and understanding. She is basically like the perfect girlfriend. And my frustration is, no one's that perfect. Like, it is really hard for me to believe that there is actually a person who would, with every single thing Haida has done, be that understanding about it right to the end. Mm. Like that was kind of my issue. Like, I can understand someone who's like, okay, this isn't my first time, entering into a relationship with someone. I understand your situation, and I'm not gonna go off the rails. But like, to do that all throughout everything and not have one moment of anger or visible sadness is kind of a bit like, this is like, we've heard of like the manic pixie dream girl. This is like the manic pixie dream girlfriend. Yeah. Who like, who just treats the relationship so logically and rationally.
Yeah, I wanted there to be a moment where she says, Haida, you son of a bitch. You dumb son of a bitch.
I mean, there's this little bit where she did kind of say, like, look, I like you, and she walked away to give him time to think about it. Like Feneko explains to him, that was her pushing things to the next level and giving you a chance to take this seriously. Because, at this point she's seen that Retsuko was in Haida's apartment before their date. Retsuko was just there for guitar lessons or bass lessons. He wasn't doing anything unfaithful at the time.
Right. But I mean,
but still, like, he is caught between these two girls.
It was a little intimate. I mean, I think Haida, Retsuko may have been there for a guitar lesson, but Haida.
Yeah, Haida wasn't taking it that way.
Right. This was an opportunity for Haida to get intimate with her.
I mean, like as guys, like, we've kind of been there. The girl you like comes over to your place, even though it's not as a date, quote unquote, and you're kind of like, ooh, maybe this will turn into something.
Oh yeah, a girl I liked once made me ceviche, and I definitely was like, ooh, is this going to go somewhere? Nope, it went to ceviche.
Yeah, I mean, in Haida's defense, like, okay, yeah, like things are not yet at the point of no return with Inoue. So, and then he's got the girl that's pretty much perfect and throwing herself at him.
I just wish Haida had more of a spine. That's my issue with him.
That's the main issue with Haida. Like, I can appreciate where you've got the sure thing with Inoue, who is a wonderful person, would make a great lifetime partner, but at the same time, damn it, he's just got the hots for Retsuko, and he just can't get move on from that.
Which, by the way, I totally understand, because the crazy messes are always the hottest.
Yeah, because so in his defense, he's not being like an evil son of a gun. He just he needs to get to the point of making a choice and standing up for himself in all of this. Either confess to Inoue, confess to Retsuko, see what happens. Like make your choice. Don't keep stringing this girl along or wasting your life away pining for someone that you don't have the guts to actively advance things with. And just all throughout, and Inoue's just like, okay, I can see that you're not in the right headspace for us to take this to the next level. Keep the curry. Make sure you put it in the fridge afterwards. No harm, no foul. And I like you. I'm waiting for you to tell me whether or not you like me. Like, if I had gone to someone's house, that seems like we're in a relationship with, cooked them a nice meal and gave them the leftovers, I would kind of have a bit of an expectation of, okay, we're more than friends at this point.
Sure.
I don't think I would rant and scream if I got turned down, but I would have been like, oh well, that sucks,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a nice subplot, but I remember as I watched this, and I polished this off in a night. These are only 15-minute episodes.
Yeah. Same here.
I just wanted to scream at Haida, like, stupid. I know she's a hot little red panda, but go with Inoue. Come on, what's wrong with you? And then there's so much, and this is stylistic of the performance and the drama, but there's so much of, and this might be a cultural thing with just Japanese drama, but sorry. Like, there's a lot of that going on. And it reminds me of an Eddie Izzard bit, where he's talking about, like, just British, or even Family Guy, where they're talking about the British, and it's a lot of, I'm sorry, this has all been a terrible imposition. Like, oh my God, just get to it already. The Eddie Izzard bit that I was thinking of. He was talking about, like, British dramas, and, like, the guy walks into a room, he's like, oh, you're here. I guess I better go.
Yeah, but like Japanese society is very big on like manners, politeness, sort of having that everyone is getting along sort of appearance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like obviously things are not always that good under the surface, and there is a whole other social system that sort of deals with that.
Everything seems very bottled up.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you remember the movie The Last Samurai, where Tom Cruise is talking to the translator that they have, and sort of talks about what are you doing here? It's like, well, I made the mistake of speaking the truth in a land where nobody says what they mean. and as someone who has lived there, I'm like, I kind of understand what he's getting at. Like, it's not in a malicious, nasty way, but it is like you really have to be good at reading between the lines for the most part. And oftentimes there'll be sort of the use of a third party to kind of go through the back channels. Like so like if there is a issue between two people, you have a sort of third neutral person who will kind of like, oh well, so and so says this is what can you help him out there? It's like, oh well this is my response, and then so that there's no actual confrontation in public, so it all kind of goes smoothly. It's like I had a friend who started dating one of the other students. He was also a student at his dojo training in Japan in a martial art, and they kept everything on the DL. No signs at the dojo that they were together, not coming or leaving or anything like that. And he's like, 2 weeks later, one of my other friends like, oh, so how are things going with what's her name? And it's just because like there just seems to be this really good ability like to read into what's not being said and kind of figure it out. So yeah, I think a lot of it is in I think more Western, especially American culture, people are just a lot more upfront.
Sure.
Right, and Japan is not so much that. Well, I mean, it's different strokes, different culture. It has its ups and downs, in my opinion. But yeah, for someone who's not used to that, it can be very, very confusing and frustrating at times.
Well, as an American viewer who likes the more Americanized, upfront way of dealing with things and doesn't have a tremendous amount of patience for, as I described, like the Eddie Izzard British drama thing. I like this series. This is not necessarily my complaining about it. I understand it's part of the cultural style, but I want so badly for these characters to talk to each other, and you just get a lot of I guess I better go. It just drives me crazy. That takes us through episodes 1 through 4. As we get into episode 5, there's a hitch in the giddy up. We have a situation where, and I forget how this happens. Maybe you can remind me. There's a bit where Aggretsuko ends up becoming the singer of the band, the singer of the group. Yeah.
Well, it's Hyodo realizes that in order for them to become popular, they need to do something other than generic idol group. And it just so happens that him and which one of the singers? I think it's Manaka. They're going to practice their new song in a karaoke booth, and Aggretsuko is also doing her death metal, stress venting at the same place. And Hyodo, walks past and sees her, and that's where he gets the idea that we're going to do a more metal song.
Yeah, that's where the baby metal thing happens. The baby metal fusion.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting... right, and then this kicks off the next couple of episodes where she becomes really serious about wanting to sing in this idol group, and it takes up her attention. Like, her job pays her bills, but this becomes her passion, which it was interesting for her. It was interesting as a viewer to see her become passionate about something besides another guy or the idea of not working. It definitely thematically fell in line with the anything not to be an accountant.
Yeah, this is kind of the bit where it kind of went off the rails a bit for me, where, okay, now it's a show about being an idol.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, okay, that's certainly, you can tell good stories about that. But, yeah, this is sort of, like, for a lot of girls, this would be, like, your dream, like, to be a part of a successful idol group.
Sure. I mean, it's funny, when my daughter started showing an interest in fashion, and she used to say she wanted to be a pop star fashion, something or other. And, I kind of turned to my wife and was like, huh? And she was like, yeah, this is kind of a phase a lot of girls go through. They all become interested in fashion. They all want to be pop stars. It's just a thing that happens to girls.
Yep. You want a pony.
Yep. You start out wanting to be a princess. Somewhere along the line, you want to be, Christina Aguilera, at least for a little while. So the show goes on like that. At some point, Hyodo's like, "Hey, you guys need to learn instruments. We're playing a rock festival." They play on the baby metal thing. There's some tension between Manaka and Aggretsuko, but they don't really do anything with it that I could see. I mean, Manaka kind of flows between being decent and being a bitch.
Yeah, well, Manaka is a person where she is totally 100% in, serious, like going out in a blaze of glory. I will do everything I can to be a successful idol until I die. And Aggretsuko's a bit more, she was pushed into this role, and it's the typical her trying to be polite and, middle of the road, non-committal, and Manaka's just, put up or shut up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough love.
Yep.
Like, we are rivals, but also on the same team.
So this flows into a situation where At one point, Retsuko noticed that their social media was hot garbage, and she just kind of takes it over. She makes an official page. They start posting information. This all helps in making. They're called the OTM girls, making the OTM girls more popular, and they're getting better gigs. They're starting to tour a little bit. The downside to this is that the old page was like a fan page. Somebody started putting like candid shots of the band, and mostly Retsuko on it, and now Retsuko has a stalker, which culminates in the stalker like tackling Retsuko and nearly killing her. He ends up getting taken out by Haida, and what was his? It was something creepy and insane, but what was his major problem with Retsuko? Something like she was ruining the band.
Yeah, it's because when she was brought in, the band was shifting to a new direction, like the more metal-focused thing, and he didn't like that. And, yeah, him being kind of, crazy, he sort of assembled this whole narrative in his mind that she's a fraud, she's a faker, she's a leech, and so on and so forth, which is not what really was going on in Retsuko's mind, but, people project things onto things they don't like. Yeah. And unfortunately, this was someone who actually acted on sort of that sort of crazed delusion, as opposed to just, I don't like the way this band's going,
so I'll go do something else.
It would be like attacking Rian Johnson because you didn't like the direction of Star Wars after The Last Jedi. I don't think anyone's actually tried that yet, or hopefully ever. But for most of us, just like, I didn't like the movie. Moving on.
I don't know how much of the comic book stuff you follow, but one writer allegedly got death threats on Twitter for what he did to one of the Flash characters.
I'm not surprised at all, though. Again, how many people will actually act on the death threats?
Right.
I mean, and yeah.
On the other hand,
that,
look what happened to what's her face from the WWE. There was a guy who was going to break into. I don't know how much wrestling you're following these days, but
none.
The one who was feuding with Mandy Rose, and he was going to break into her house and bang her straight was the plan. Because she's gay, you see.
Yeah, that doesn't work, by the way, guys. Like, no.
Well, he got arrested, so...
Good. Hopefully before he was able to do anything.
No, she was not attacked, but, with the threat and everything out there, these things happen, in other words.
Yeah.
So the idea of somebody attacking Retsuko is not far out of the realm of possibility. Anyway, Retsuko kind of goes home, and she's like, she's traumatized by the incident. Who wouldn't be? And it's Haida who goes and gets her and says, "You have to come back to the world." And she kind of fights him a little bit, but he's like, and Haida basically was like, "You can't be like this forever."
Yeah, and this is also the point where he kind of confesses to her as well, and then she responds with the how can you say this? You don't even know who I am. You're in love with the me that exists in your mind, your image. Yeah,
this got a little nighttime soap opera-ish for me. This whole bit of dialogue.
Yeah, though I do love the bit where she just talks about life sucks, it's always beating me down, and then he just grabs the mic from her and says, "Then let's punch back together." And I just thought that was a kind of a cool turnaround.
And that's where it's left. He's reached out to her. He kind of brought her back from the abyss. And assuming there's going to be a season 4 of this, it's where do we go now? She knows he likes her. She's just had this whirlwind trip through Idleville. And are they going to be a thing? Or, this is Sam and Diane. Will they or won't they?
Yeah, I'm really not a big fan of will they, won't they stories, especially because most of the time the answer is will they, so why waste our time? Mm-hmm. Especially, like my wife and I just finished watching all of Lucifer, and just the contrivances of kicking that moment down the field to the next season or half season, whatever, just got ridiculous towards the end. Mm-hmm. It's just just hook up already.
Will you people fucking get it over with?
Yeah, no more of this. I think you're crazy. Oh, now I'm coming around. Oh, now this has happened, so now we're apart again. And just find other stuff to do in your story.
Right.
Like I thought we were supposed to be about like hunting criminals and murderers down. But anyway.
I know that a lot of the people that I podcast with are not huge fans of The Big Bang Theory, but that was kind of that show for a while, where it was with Leonard and Penny. It was like, Jesus Christ, fuck or not, but enough with this. Make a decision and stick with it.
Yeah, it's sort of after the first time they broke up. Once they got back together again, it was okay. This has to be permanent now because you can't just keep doing. They're breaking up, getting back together. Like we've done that. You've done the breakup story.
Oh my
God!
God!
Let's do the actual relationship. So
the breakup, the breakup, and the subsequent being apart between when she breaks up with him in the bowling alley and when they finally do reconcile. That period was fucking painful to watch. Like if it hadn't been for the other subplots and other things going on with the characters, that show would have been nigh unwatchable. All right. Anything else about? I'm kind of run out of stuff to talk about with Aggretsuko. This was my favorite season. I know you were like, I wish they'd get back in the office. Maybe they will in season 4 if there is a season 4. But this was my favorite season so far. I really enjoyed this. I liked her. I liked her adventures in Idleville. I think it might be because I'm like a huge Baby Metal fan, and so that was really appealing to me. But also, just the story of her. She wasn't as whiny in this season as she was in the previous 2, which I kind of like. She actually, when she takes over the business, she actually shows she's made of sterner stuff, which I liked. And it isn't until she's attacked, where she goes back to being mealy mouth again, and rightly so. So I really like this season. I'll give you the final word if there's anything else you want to bring up.
Yeah, I mean. Like my criticism is just that a criticism. It's not me saying I hated the season. It was just I was surprised that it went in this direction. Mm-hmm. It's all relative, right?
Right.
Like just because I like something better than someone else doesn't mean I think it's the greatest thing ever. Or I don't like it as much as someone else means it's the worst thing ever. Now it's like things can exist on a spectrum.
You're not going to send death threats to the writer. Excuse me. You're not going to send death threats to the writer.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any issues there. It was just again, what drew me to it was it kind of being more of a show about being someone working 9-to-5 job, not really sure what you want to do with your life, and just kind of dealing with becoming a responsible adult, and learning how to get by in the workforce, because that's kind of a neat setting and something that we don't really talk about that much at this level, and then kind of making it, she gets the dream of being an idol singer. It's like, well, now it's not really that show anymore. Now it's about living the dream, sort of thing, and that was kind of where I just thought it kind of took a thematic, left turn.
What your wife has watched all 3 seasons. What did she think of this one?
Yeah, well, I think she liked it. I think it was. I think our main issue is, well, that was fun. Now we wait until next year.
Okay.
The perils of binge watching. So yeah, it takes a different direction. But like, as for the story that it's telling, it's a good story. Like there were some good moments in it. Like Fenico trying out the virtual boyfriend was priceless.
Yeah, that was good stuff. I was amused by that.
We were just laughing all along, and just some of the other cast members showing up, like Gori and Washimi are back together now, and sort of how they're supporting Aggretsuko. Gori developing her dating app was kind of funny, and how they weaved it in towards the later parts of the season, I thought was quite a clever setup and payoff.
Yeah, there were some cute little couplings here, like Tadano and Gori. The other one I wanted to bring up really quick, just because it cracked me the hell up, was what's his face? The one who was all litigious. It turns out he's a chef.
Litigious, turns out chef.
The one that she trains in the 2nd season.
Oh, Anai, yeah.
Anai. So Anai and Hadai. I want an Anai and Hadai spinoff.
Yeah.
Anai and Hadai had to get going out drinking, and at one point Hadai just like grabs Anai.
Haida. Yeah.
And he's like, "This is why I send emails." I died laughing. I laughed hard at that.
Yeah, Anai's growth is pretty nice too. He doesn't have a lot to do with this season, but it like the one bit where Haida gives him some work to do, it's like, okay, done. It's like, what? Like that's it. It's like, yeah, like he's settled into his job.
Yeah,
and kind of grown into a more mature person as a result.
And he's writing cookbooks, and he has a girlfriend, and I just thought the two of them going out drinking together was a really funny bit.
Yeah, but again, that's very common in the Japanese workforce. You go out drinking with your workplace coworkers after work, kind of every night, sort of thing.
Okay,
but getting there. Yeah, so Feneko is good. I do like that they progressed Haida's relationship with Retsuko, because again, like, there's only so much you can do. Will they? Won't they? Mm-hmm. We need something new. And I think the last one that I want to message is Boss Ton.
Okay.
As well. I mean, again, he doesn't have a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
But when he does, like, because he finds out that Retsuko has been moonlighting as an idol. And
he gives a shit about it. He's like, can you fucking pick a lane and stay in one?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, it is important, like, for his job overseeing the accounting department that, the employees are doing their job properly. If you're not working as well because you're working a second job, which is, like, discouraged, apparently in companies, you're not supposed to have a side hustle. You're supposed to be focused exclusively on the job. Again, the company puts all of its weight behind you. In response, you're expected to give everything to the company. Like even in like junior high school and after, students are not supposed to take part-time jobs because they're supposed to be devoting themselves to their studies for their entrance examinations for university, which is a really big deal in the education system. So, and you can even see that where Retsuko explains the situation to him. He's like, oh, so you owe money. And he gets out his wallet. It's like, you're our employee. You're in trouble. This is impacting your ability to do your job. The company will loan you the cash to get out of this situation so you can kind of come back to the fold. So there is this, as much as Ton is at times somewhat abusive and, a pain to Retsuko, she is still his employee, and he still has that sense of responsibility to look after her.
She doesn't give two shits, though, about this company. She really doesn't. So she it's funny. I'd almost like to see some flashbacks to how she got to where she is, because, like, it almost seems like however long she's been there, I think I remember in the first season they actually talked, like, her first day, and then they flashed forward, and that's when she breaks a heel and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know a big part of the show is she thought she was doing and haven't we all been there? She thought she was doing the right thing. She thought she had a good track, the track she was supposed to be on, and then she finds herself in almost like a midlife crisis where she's utterly unfulfilled. And the show, with this season, starts to become about, the first two seasons where I'm gonna get off this track that I have been on, that I've discovered I don't want to be on anymore through finding a man. And this season, it was, I'm going to get off this track that I don't want to be on by being an idol singer. And it's like, okay, so what's season 4 going to be about? What other thing is she going to find to distract herself with? And how many times is Tom going to tell her, shit or get off the pot already? Either you're a part of this or you're not.
Yeah. But there are these moments where, as much as he's harsh, the advice he gives does seem to be somewhat looking out for her well-being, especially in the second season where he sort of says, like, look, Tadano is a genius, he's an eccentric, the rules of society are not for him and he's okay with that, but that ain't you. You want the wedding, you want the dress, you want the reception, you want the married life. And if you go ahead and just be his unwed partner, you will never be happy with that. And that's just the reality of it. It's not him trying to screw her over or force her to come back to the company. It's just him saying, look, this is the path you're setting yourself down. Are you really sure you want to do this?
Right.
And I like that aspect to Ton, is as much as he is this sort of monster boss character, it is kind of almost this sort of no one makes Retsuko's life miserable, that's my job sort of attitude. And like she is in the company, and if you mess with that, you mess with me. And it is kind of a bit disheartening how he just sort of says, like, at some point this is going to turn bad for you, and are you ready for that? What are you going to do? And she just says, I'm going to do this until, we're successful, and then I'm going to hand in my notice. Like, that's a pretty nasty thing to say to a boss.
Yeah.
As much as Ton kind of deserves a bit of of talking down to, but that's sort of like, maybe, like, that's the sort of thing you wait until after you're a successful idol,
right,
to say to someone, and because in the end she kind of realizes,
don't say, I'm here until something better comes along, deuces.
Yeah. So. And then it happens, and she kind of realizes, wait, the idol life is, or the idol life is not for me in the end, and she decides to go back to the focusing on working at the company. And I mean, to go to your sort of what Ritsuko was like before the start of the show, there is that brief sort of flashback series showing how she always just kind of goes along with the flow and tries to meet everyone's expectations and never sort of stands up for what she wants, which is sort of what she ends up screaming about to Haida about. And then he's sort of saying, no, I want to see this side of you. Let's get through this together, sort of thing. And so it, there's good character stuff there, and this is sort of Retsuko learning how to be bit more aggressive, trying to figure out like what she wants to do in life. And it is kind of funny how it kind of keeps on throwing all these dream scenarios at her. We're like, you now have like a rich entrepreneur CEO boyfriend who could keep you living in the lap of luxury for the rest of your life, and he's a good guy, but he doesn't really want to get married. And then it's like, you could be a single in an idol group. What young girl doesn't want to have that opportunity? It's like, yeah, but, like, do you really want to pay the price of fame? Like, it's, it's all these kind of like more mature, sort of grown-up aspects of life. It's not the sort of simplistic, yay, you made it. You're living the dream, sort of thing.
So we'll see if this gets renewed for a season 4. Netflix. It is hard to predict what Netflix is going to do from one series to the next. They cancel things. I mean, they canceled a couple of things that I think people really liked, and then renewed Warrior Nun. So here's me shrugging. But I look forward to a season 4 if there is one. If there isn't, hey, it's been a fun 3 seasons. Anything else? Sorry.
Just regarding season 4 is, if there is a season 4, I'm hoping that it does focus a bit more back on the company and Retsuko figuring out her role there and her growing relationship with Haida. But let's develop those lines more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I still think that there's probably a lot of drama that they could mine from just stuff that happens working at a company and developing your career across that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. If you've been hanging out with us here on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network all week, you know that we did reviews for Mulan. David was on that, lending his Eastern Asian. What was your degree? Eastern Asian
East Asian Studies.
Lending his East Asian Studies.
The least monetizable
fluency.
degree, by the way. just anyone thinking of going in, like, guys, don't take anything that ends with studies.
Yeah.
If you want to make money.
No. You need to stick with like money degrees or engineering degrees. That's where the money is.
Yeah. Engineering, science, maybe business. Though I think that you're sort of rolling the dice on that one in some ways.
But he lended his East Asian studies expertise to our Mulan discussion, so that was fun. And then we threw David and Alexis off the boat, and Robert and I just discussed Tenet by ourselves. Myself and Chris Bailey did a review of AEW All Out. It took us several tries, but we finally got it done. Next week, we'll be reviewing Dark Victory, the Batman comic, Muppets Now, Marilyn Manson, We Are Chaos, and because Pat and Robert Winfrey suggested it, we're going to be discussing the series Kingdom, which has come to its end after 3 seasons. Last week, we did a whole bunch of podcasts. We reviewed Bill and Ted Face the Music, New Mutants, the Demon Bear Saga, Bill and Ted Save the Universe, and we did a long road to ruin for the first two Bill and Ted movies. So that's what's going on here. David, you got to do a podcast. It finally got up. Why don't you go ahead and plug that?
Yeah, so it was me, you, Winfrey, and Andrew Graham. We all sat down and talked about the Star Trek movies 1 through 6. That's all the movies with the original series crew. And yeah, that should be up on the Wrestling to the Max feed. So if you haven't listened to yet, please do so. And hopefully within the next month or two, we'll manage to get enough people together to do another retrospective on some aspect of Star Trek. I'm just going to assume it'll be the Next Generation films. But scheduling is not always easy, as Mark will tell you as he fights back searing tears of blood.
Yeah, there's rumors out there that they're going to move Wonder Woman, Black Widow, and Dune, and I'm waiting for that. It's one of those where, in the movies where the giant tidal wave is coming and you just see it and there's nowhere to go. It's kind of like the end of Deep Impact. You're just sitting there on the beach waiting to get killed by the tidal wave. That's how I feel.
Yeah, you're like the old couple in Titanic, just embracing each other in bed as the waters rise and the inevitable consumes them.
Yep, that is my life right now. Such as the movie industry and the theaters and the whatnot. All right, folks. Hope you've enjoyed our discussion of Aggretsuko Season 3. David, I've enjoyed talking to you as always. Until next time, this has been TV Party Tonight. Be well, be safe, and behave.